Dear participants, mentors, guests, and partners, it's been 3 weeks full of innovation, inspiration, and technology. You had a chance to listen to inspiring stories, to master your art of pitching, dive into intellectual property training, connect with your teams, and to discover the wisdom of your mentors. And today, we're saying hi from our second sprint. And this event wouldn't have happened without help and support from our dear partners, Ignitis Group, Rocket, Future Leadership, and the Nordic Council of Ministers office in Lithuania. And of course, our beloved community partners and mentors from all over the world. Thank you all. Thank you for your support and contribution. And right now, without any further talks, it's time to kick off the second sprint. Ina, are you ready to present our second sprint methodology part?
Yes, absolutely. Today, we are closing the full innovation cycle, and we've got quite a few methods in place to help you do that. So let's begin. So, over the last few weeks, you had a chance to, first of all, investigate what is your challenge, then come up with a solution or an idea how to address it. And today, we're going to continue further on in developing how would you actually launch this idea into the market. As we mentioned before, the whole point of us training you here is to give you a toolkit for critical and creative innovation thinking and making. And up to this point, you've already achieved a lot. You have understood your challenge, you have defined your insight, you have created a vision or a concept for the future. And during the break, you had a chance to test it with some of your consumers, as well as refine your idea into a minimum viable product. Today is all about the future. So, what is your business model going forward? How will you be evolving it over time? And essentially, how will you be launching your idea into the market? The aim for today is to one, define the business model, and two, define your sales pitch presentation. As you can see, there aren't many items here on the list. We've done this for a reason. One, this type of activity takes quite a while, and this is something that's crucial for you to think through. And at the same time, we really want you to be prepared for those final pitches and have all of the material in place by the end of the day, so you feel comfortable and excited and happy to present what you've already created. In terms of criteria, how will you be judged? We will evaluate you according to the following percentages below. Um, Challenge and target audience will accumulate to about 20% of your evaluation. Solution will be 25% of your evaluation. Strategy and implementation plan will be 25%, and then sales pitch is 30%. Challenge and target audience as well as solution is what you've done in the last sprint, as well as during your homework. And today, the focus is very much on that strategy and implementation plan, as well as sales pitch. So let's jump into the exercises right away. The methodology that we would like to expose you today is called pre-mortem, business model canvas, and storytelling matrix. As you can see, there aren't a lot of exercises in here, but that's the whole point of it. We don't want you to be overwhelmed today. We really want to make sure that you delve deeply into the business model canvas, and at the same time, you have enough time to prepare to summarize all of your effort, all of your ideas up to this point so far, and present them to the mentors at the end of the day. Let's start with the pre-mortem exercise. This exercise shouldn't take more than 30 minutes for you. It comes from the world of systems thinking, and it's actually a really vital exercise to do once you have a challenge identified and that initial solution. Pre-mortem is a way to address any underlying issues or concerns before we launch a product or a service. It's essentially like a post-mortem inspection that you do early. In principle, the way it works is you do a bit of a pretend game here. You say your project has failed, and you're asking yourselves, why did it happen? So, in principle, you are imagining yourselves at some point in the future where you have launched this into the market and something has gotten in the way. The point here is not to talk about team dynamic issues or any stuff like that, but it's more to do with actually construction of your challenge, of your solution, of your business model, as well as identification of the audience. So the questions that you would be asking yourselves is, did we address the right challenge? Did we recognize the full extent of the challenge? What value did we miss? Which users did we miss? Did we identify the right audience in the first place? And how did our solution fail? This is not the time to be polite or cautious. Feel free to iron out or put on the table any kind of concerns that you have up until this point. More often than not, people who do this type of exercise early on realize that many people within the same group would have had some concerns or considerations about the idea or the challenge. But because they didn't address them right away, they actually struggled later on. And that was what made majority of the projects fail. So in terms of technicality, the way that it works, you should start off by brainstorming individually a number of different reasons why your project has failed. You should write them down on separate post-its on Mural. And then one by one, share with what you've come up with. As you share, you will be discussing what could be the full impact of this concern and how you could potentially address it. And last but not least, you should select maybe 4 or 5 biggest concerns on the table. Bear in mind, some of them might actually overlap, and you should agree the tactics of how you're going to address it. It's important that you also make a note of it in the mural board. And bear in mind, it is okay if it slightly changes your idea or it moves the description of your challenge in here. That's the whole point of this exercise. So the next exercise that we want to expose you to is called Business Model Canvas. This tool is used to quickly and easily define and communicate a business idea. It's an absolute must in Innovator's toolbox because it's such a brilliant classic and it pretty much doesn't have an equivalent exercise out there in order to define your business model and how will you launch your solution into the market. We will be spending around 90 minutes of this exercise. However, if you feel like you need to spare more time for it, feel free to do so. Just bear in mind that you do need to prepare for your pitch at the end of the day. So let's talk about the overview of the canvas and some of those critical components that exist in there. In principle, the right side of the business model canvas focuses on the customer. So that is very much externally facing side. The left side, though, focuses on the business. So this is very much internal. Any your as you your key activities as a business, your key resources, your key partners. And both of these internal and external factors meet around the value proposition, which sits right there in the middle of the canvas. And the value essentially defines the exchange of the value proposition defines the exchange of value between your business and your customers and clients. Now, we're going to talk through some of these sections one by one so we understand it better, because it can be quite overwhelming to see so many different sections in here. The first thing that you need to do in the canvas is really name the purpose of the business. So in principle, it can be a simple statement that just defines what you're trying to achieve. So just to give you an example, it could be to earn a passive income from home. Another example could be to prevent the destruction of Indonesian rainforests. Another one could be to improve the financial stability of our parent organization. As you see, it essentially just defines your goal or what you're trying to solve as part of your challenge. Now, the second item here on the list is the actual value proposition, and it is the true foundation of any business or any product. It is essentially the fundamental concept of the exchange of value between your business and your customer or clients. Um, Generally, what we call value is essentially is exchanged um, when a customer actually gets one of their pain points or their key problem resolved for them for a certain amount of money. So what you're trying to determine here is what essentially are your clients going to pay for. So you need to ask yourselves again those fundamental questions. What is the problem that I'm solving? Why would someone want to have this problem solved? And what is the underlying motivator for this problem? Think back to the first sprint and some of those key activities that you went through there. Those were the ones that helped you to define your challenge. Anything around it will sit in this column. Let's move on to the next one. So um, now we're in the right side of the business model canvas. So this is now everything that is customer facing. So if it's customer facing, the first thing that we need to do is determine our customer. Again, you will remember that in the first sprint, we've done a bit of that and you had a chance to identify who will be your target audience. This is now a chance to break it down even further. You want to actually specify and segment the types or different groups of audiences that you would want to address. And the way that you do it is actually by determining also their demographics and some of the emotional aspects of the relationship that you could have with them. So you would want to define maybe them by age or gender or interests and specific habits. The reason why you do this is because you want to understand how you will reach them in the first place. So, different habits, different ages, different genders have different needs, and therefore you will be using different channels to access them. So, this step is really important. So, again, you're asking yourselves, who are we solving this problem for? Who are the people that will value my value proposition? Maybe they are another business. If so, what are the characteristics of those businesses? Um, are there any other people? Does my value proposition appeal to men, women, or both? Does it appeal to young adults, aged to 20 to 30, or teenagers? All of these questions will guide you in kind of determining it better. The next item here is all about customer relationships. So essentially, what is the relationship that you want to have or will have with your customers? It usually is defined as how a business interacts with its customers. So, when you will offer them a product or a service, will you meet them in person or over the phone? Is your business predominantly going to be run online? So the relationship will be aligned too. All of these questions, again, is something to think about. And some of the examples of things that you would be putting down in here are, it could be in person, so one to one, could be third party contractors, so you're not never really meeting your customers directly, could be through online relationships, could be through events, and could be over the phone. The last item here on the right hand side of the canvas is what we call channels. So now we're determining the routes of how you're going to reach your target audience. Now that you understand who they are and what kind of a relationship you want to have with them, the good questions to ask in here would be, how are you going to tell your customer segment about your value proposition? Where do your customers sit? Are they typically on social media? Or do they typically drive their car and they're listening to the radio? Do they typically go to lots of events and conferences? Or are they the type of audience who watch TV at 7 p.m. on a Friday night? All of these things can be determined from the typology of the customer segment. And in terms of the examples of the channels, you can think about social media, public speaking, electronic mail, networking, search engine marketing, search engine optimization, engineering is marketing, viral marketing. There's many, many different channels of how you could reach your audiences. So I would suggest maybe picking out top 5 depending on the segment that you've selected. Let's move on to the left-hand side of the canvas. Now, this is where things get interesting. So we are going to determine now what would you be doing as a business if you now know what your value proposition is and you clearly understand who your target audience is and how you're going to access them. The key activities of your business or your product are essentially the actions that your business undertakes to achieve the value proposition for your customers. In terms of questions that you would be asking here, essentially is what activities does the business undertake in achieving the value proposition? What is the resource used? What is the time used, expertise, distribution of product, technical development strategy, offer resources, um, and etc., etc. And in terms of examples, you could be, for example, you could be doing a bit of consulting to be able to provide the value for your audience. You could be doing design exercises, especially if you're creating a new digital product or a service. You could require web development, um, depending on how you're going to access your customers or your target audience. You could also be doing like really manual things, like literally making the product itself. So in here, the example is baking. You could also be, for example, driving if you intend to deliver your product to the door to the customers. Or, you could be doing shoveling, but hopefully that is not one of your ideas. Let's move on to the next section. So um, the next one determines what would be then your key resources. You can see the nice flow in here. You now understand what your key activities are. You would now want to understand, okay, what do I need then to be able to do those activities? And it just determines all sorts of resources that may be required, whether that is office space, computers, hosting, people themselves. So, literally, the talent capability within your group or within your network, um, even internet connection, maybe cars, bikes, oven, electricity, car parts, essentially anything that you need to tap into to be able to do the things that you want to do as a business. And here comes the last part of your internally focusing business items, key partners. If you look at the key activities that you want to do and then look at the key resources and realize, hold on, we cannot do this alone. This is where you would determine who would you want to collaborate with or work with in order to be able to run your business. Do you need to maybe engage another small startup to work together in achieving the same thing? Do you need to reach out, let's say, to a government unit to be able to get the support that you need and access to the stakeholders you want to talk to? Do you need to maybe reach out to specific types of organizations who would have the talent capability that is missing from your company? This is where you get a chance to determine that. And there are many different types of partners as well. So really think about, really do a bit of dreaming in here. Who would you really want to reach and have access to? So now that we understand what's our value proposition, who is our client, and what kind of things do we need to run as a business, now we get into the money side. Because in the end of the day, regardless of how cool or good our idea is, we cannot do things without money. That is the unfortunate truth of today's reality. So, the first thing that you need to realize or understand is how much are all of those things that we have identified on the left hand side of the canvas are going to cost us. All of those activities that we have identified, all of those resources, that's what we're going to need to spend our money on. And here comes even more nuanced things. We need to take into consideration even things like legal fees and insurances and any kind of physical assets you will be paying for. You would literally want to more or less determine what you're going to spend your money on proportionally and in terms of the amount of money itself. And once you do that, then you can start thinking, okay, then how are we actually going to make all of that money? Um, Ideally, we wouldn't be wanting to pay out for all of this just out of our pocket, or just purely from venture capitalists supporting us endlessly. This is where we define the revenue streams. So we need to consider, how are we going to extract that monetary value from our people? And we need to proportionally adjust it to actually our value proposition. We can't really be asking people to pay hundreds of pounds or dollars or euros for something that isn't really worth it. So we really need to think about that balance here. So there are many different revenue models out there. Um, it's up to you to consider which one would make sense most, depending on your product or your service. You could suggest that they would be, your clients would be paying per product, essentially, you get an item to your doorstep kind of thing. They could be paying a fee for a specific service or provision of service. You could have a fixed rate. So you are asking people to pay a specific amount of money for a specific part of your product or your service. You could actually utilize a subscription model. So in here, people are paying a set amount of money for a specific amount of time to be exposed to your service or to your product. You could be even thinking about dividends, referral fees, freemium, and equity gain. So as you can see, there's lots of different options out there, and it's really just about determining the smartest move at that particular point in time when you're launching your product. Bear in mind, overall, you could change your business model. You could determine that, 2 years down the line, maybe subscription is not going to be the best option, and you could pivot. That's what lots of different companies do, and that's actually okay. But again, the point is, what's your initial step? And it's a crucial one. Now, you may be thinking at this point that this seems like quite a lot. There's a lot of steps, a lot of overwhelming material. But bear in mind that this exercise is essentially like your foundation for the future. It's your map for the next 2 years to come. And you have some of that material already from the first sprint. So I'm sure you will be able to go through it rather swiftly. And at the same time, you also have the time to think about some of those items. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to ask them. We're here for you. We're going to help you in whatever way we can. And I'm sure you will do excellently in here. So here we are, the last exercise of the day, and quite an important one: storytelling matrix. We would want you to spend probably around 60 minutes worth of time just preparing all of that material that you have created so far and putting into a story that you could communicate to the mentors as well as any VCs or stakeholders beyond this sprint. And what we've put together here is essentially a mini structure for you to follow through, to be able to tell all of the things that you have achieved, discovered, and found out so far. It's a really basic structure, absolute classic, but it works. It does magic every single time. And it very much is in line with what we've prepared in terms of the criteria that you will be evaluated against. So if you prepare an answer for each one of these questions in each sections, you will be good to go. So the first thing that we want you to start with in storytelling is actually the why. So please tell us more. Please tell us about the challenge. So, what is the issue that you're trying to solve? Why is it important to solve it? What's your insights? So, that means what have you figured out that hasn't been figured out before? And why is it important to solve it now? So, talk a little bit about the burning platform. Why now? Why not later? Why does this issue matter? The second bit in storytelling is all about the what. So, your solution and your target audience. In here, you answer the questions like what's your vision, what is your concept, and who's your target audience and why. And last section is all about the how. So in here, this is where you introduce us to your product or service, or maybe even a system. You also talk in here about your minimum viable product, as well as your business model. So in here, you're trying to answer the questions such as how does your solution work? What kind of features does it have? What kind of technology is it based on? You would then talk about what's your MVP, and then go on to talk about how will you be making money. So very much you would be extracting the material from the business canvas to be able to cover this part. And to conclude, of course, you would want to say, why is your solution better than any existing ones? What's the difference that you're actually making here? Bear in mind, and the top question talks about features and technology. Your solution may not be based on technology, and that is okay. Please don't get worried in here. This is just in case you do have something based on technology. And that is essentially it for today. So hopefully at the end, you will be able to achieve what we want, which is business model canvas as well as sales pitch presentation. Um, and following those exercises, you should be able to come to those conclusions. And just to remind you, at the end of the day, your idea will be judged according to this criteria. First of all, challenge and target audience. Do you have it? Has it been determined? Is it an interesting challenge? Is it well thought through? Second item there is the solution itself. So, how are you addressing your challenge? And what's your idea? Third thing is strategy and implementation plan. So these are the items that you would extract from business model canvas. And last in here is the sales pitch. So the sales pitch should take into consideration all of the other items above. And it's a very important one in terms of criteria. And at the end of the day, same principle as last time. We want you to present your summary of your ideas and everything else that you've done on a maximum 2-minute video. It should follow more or less that format of the sales pitch presentation. But if you want to deviate from that structure, feel free to. It's up to you as long as you have all of those items covered. And you should send those 2-minute videos to demante@alterstate.org or direct Slack message to Demante Gutowskaite. Again, if you have any questions around the logistics of it, feel free to shoot questions to us at any given time. But deadline is 9 p.m. sharp, so we will be very, very much looking forward to your videos at that time. And quick reminder, all of Q&A, all official communication is happening on #teamquestions. And again, those YouTube videos, all of that goes to Demante directly.
Thank you, Ina. So what's next? After today's sprint, your videos are going to be evaluated by mentors, and 15 top teams will be selected to proceed further. We're going to announce and contact the team leads of the winning teams on Sunday, 3 p.m. GMT plus 2. So please follow the communication on Slack. But no matter what the results are, you have to remember that all of you are the winners. You have already won by participating in the Alter State Nordic-Baltic Women Innovation Sprint, by challenging your status quo, by learning new methodologies, coming together to collaborate, connect, and learn. During the last 3 weeks, you developed your innovation tools, expanded your knowledge and network, also had the chance to work with incredible mentors and listen to many inspiring stories. And we hope that you had a lot of fun.
And we wish that this evening becomes a new beginning of the community, colleagues, like minded people who are going to move innovation culture to the new heights. We have created a LinkedIn group so we could maintain and nurture our relationships. So please do go ahead and join us. There's only a couple of tasks that you need to complete today, but they will require focus and teamwork. We wish you good energy, collaborative spirit, and relentless optimism as you go through it. We will wait for your video by 9 p.m. at the end of the day, and we cannot wait to see what you've created. You should be so proud of your accomplishments, regardless of results. It's been incredible to see your commitment and curiosity in finding truly innovative ideas. We couldn't be happier for you to become a part of Alter State community.
We will share this presentation with you after the broadcast ends on our Slack channel. And right now, good luck to you all. Do your best. And we're looking forward to receiving your videos by 9 p.m. GMT plus 2 today. Please be sharp and don't be late. And on Sunday, we will announce who is going to the finals. And right now, enjoy the process. And remember, we are here to learn, grow, and have fun together. See you.